Sounds like an Antonio Brown interview.
And one of the things I'm good at is taking the measure of people pretty quick. The boss is good at that too, Trump. And I'm thinking, what? And so I fight with this guy.
Wow.
Mulvaney, I'm fighting with him. Redfield comes in and supports Fauci, and we leave that meeting with Mulvaney tries to say, all right, we have a consensus, we're against the travel ban. I said, no, Mick. There's no friggin' consensus. I just like it. No, Mick. There's no consensus in this room. And Pottinger finally says something. He's a National Security Council. And what I do that night is I go home and I write a memo that I'm going to plaster to the entire task force and broad chain that says that if we don't do this, this virus is capable of killing 500,000 Americans and costing us trillions of dollars. January 28, 2020. And that's about the best memo I've probably ever written because it was spot on. And here's the punchline. Fauci, when he was sitting there, that SOB knew for a fact that virus came from the Wuhan lab. He knew that because he had funded the gain-of-function research in that lab, and he had already begun to design a cover-up. And we know that from the emails he sent to a group of researchers, academics, trying to get their support to push that come-from-nature theory. And that's the biggest lie of omission in American history. Because if he had simply owned up to the fact that thing came from the lab, we could have pressured the Chinese to give us the genome sequence, which would have allowed us to design an effective vaccine rather than the crap we wound up getting. And again, Trump got lied to about that, not just by Fauci, but by Pfizer, the drug company.
In what way?
They didn't disclose the side effects of that. And they weren't clear with him. They made him think that it was a true vaccine when it's not. It's mRNA technology. And, let
me back up there again.
We wound up getting. And again, Trump got lied to about that, not just by Fauci, but by Pfizer, the drug company.
In what way?
They didn't disclose the side effects of that. And they weren't clear with him. They made him think that it was a true vaccine when it's not. It's mRNA technology. And, I worked with a guy named Dr. Robert Malone. You have him on the show sometime.
We had him.
Yeah. It's like the way, Malone was out there beforehand, but I had him on Steve Bannon's War Room when I was guest hosting. He sat kind of like you and me are sitting, Patrick. And we talked about all this and wound up writing a 3-part series in the Washington Times about how the universal vax policy would basically spawn mutations that would be more lethal. Oh, you don't have to get too much in that. But my point is that day, that January 28th day, was a very significant one, overlooked in the history of the pandemic and in American history, because Fauci was there. He opposed the president's travel ban. He lied to the American people by not disclosing right then what should have been his, even if he didn't know that it came from the lab, he should have told us it might have come from the lab. And because he didn't do that, we didn't get the genome, we didn't get a thing. And Fauci goes on and sticks a knife in the back of the president throughout that election cycle. I told the boss to fire that SOB twice.
And what did Trump say when you told him that?
Well, the problem was I was the lone voice. And I don't blame him for not taking my advice in that. I'm like the trade advisor, right? And he had, like, every time Fauci got into political trouble with Trump, Redfield, CDC, Steve Hahn, the head of the FDA, Azar, the head of the Health and Human Services.
So you guys got the meat of that video that